Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back, Chris. Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 51, Chris, of the Paid Search Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something very interesting, Chris. But first, I have a few things on my list of miscellaneous items. So can we run down these? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Are you wearing your jean shorts today?
Yeah, the cutoffs. Yeah, the ones that go 6 inches above the knee. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Just making sure. Now, Chris, I've been getting messages. They've been hitting up my social media page. Did you get jury duty? Guilty, not guilty. What happened?
How
exciting was it?
Thank you for asking. I did not get picked, but I did spend a miserable 5 to 6 hours sitting around, about another 2 hours sitting on a hard bench, being asked very silly questions about my thoughts on the legalization of drugs and how I feel about police officers and all kinds of things I never really thought about before. But
they didn't choose you.
No, did not choose me. Back in the office on the next day, and back at it. So,
did you find out what the case was for?
Yeah, a guy got accused of carrying a ton of drugs in his car.
Wow.
All the bad stuff. We're not talking about stuff that people legalize sometimes, but we're talking about that. Everyone agrees it should be illegal. So yeah, pretty heavy stuff. Criminal court. It was exciting. It was exciting, but I'm glad I don't have to do that more than a couple times in my life. It was not fun. It was not fun.
Well, we're glad to have you back here. Before we begin, Chris, quick clerical error. Actually, we got two things. One is still haven't heard from anyone, Chris, about Facebook. All we did was ask this massive audience of people in the digital marketing space, send us one Facebook person, man or woman, anyone who gets leads for their clients from Facebook. Haven't heard from anybody yet.
Yeah, still out there.
Still out there. So the offer's still out there. I want to remind everyone of that. We're now 3 weeks in. And the last thing, Chris, little clerical issue, little housekeeping. Last week was the 50th episode, bro.
Yes.
And we wasted it on data columns. So last week we said this week was the 50th, but last week was the 50th. But anyway, congratulations to us 1 year in.
Yes.
Sponsored episode.
Well, technically, aren't there 52 weeks in a year?
So, some years.
Okay, well,
next week will be a year in, but I was looking at our emails, and
you're supposed to come down to Houston, I believe, next week.
You can come up to Oklahoma City anytime.
I have a 3-month-old. How dare you?
I have a 4-year-old.
No, you do not.
I'm a pet parent, so
yeah, that does not count.
You know what? We'll sort that out.
Yeah,
we'll get in touch, and we'll figure it out. But for this episode, Chris, we're going to go back to my old accounting days, and we're going to talk about reporting. This is something business owners don't know a lot about. Dare I say it's something that AdWords professionals don't know a lot about in some cases. And today we're going to talk about how to make a report, what needs to be on there. If you're a business owner, what you should be looking at. And Chris, it's our favorite part of the month. The first of the month, we kick those reports out. And I'd love to tell everyone what we like to see on them, and then some also additional things. And then also we're going to talk about what to watch for as a business owner on your AdWords reports. So kick us off here, Chris. Let's start off with the basics. And I guess the first question is, how often should you get reports?
Yeah. I think, Jason, for basically all of my clients, although I talk to my clients maybe more than once a month, all my clients receive their official reports once a month.
Right.
Even my high spend clients, I'll be in touch with them about the metrics. But if there's reasons to receive reports more often than once a month, I've yet to come across it, because most of the time it's large decisions about changing the trend or analyzing the success of a campaign. More frequently than a month gets really difficult. You have to be spending a lot of money to be making decisions on a bi-monthly basis. Is that the word? Bi-monthly? Is that twice a month, or is that every other month? Bi-weekly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you go.
I'm well versed in everything bi.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
but not that, but for the record, not that well versed. Just
right.
on a definition vocabulary basis, not an experiential basis. Not that it would matter.
Why are you so
It might give
defensive?
me multiple perspectives for. I should stop talking. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Chris.
you should stop. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So my thoughts are monthly. What about you?
Okay. I'm same boat as you. Monthly for most of my clients. Now, I did have a local lawyer here in Oklahoma City, who I would say was like an abused dog in terms of being an AdWords client. This guy had been put through the ringer, Chris, by bad AdWords managers in terms of people not knowing what they're doing. He knows all his calls are coming from Google AdWords, but he's getting a lot of wrong type of calls. He's freaking out. And I told him, and I love this line, I would be his last AdWords manager after the first three. And so one of my selling points to him was search terms. And we talked all about search terms and kind of conveyed to him that's his main issue is search terms, and we can fix that going forward. He is a trust but verify guy. He said, cool, I'm going to hire you, but I want to see that F-word search terms report every day. And I said, calm down. We don't need to do it every day, but we do send him that every week. So that's one example where a client wanted to get a part of the report multiple times a month. Another client, he likes to see his stuff bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. But you're right, Chris, for most of my accounts, 1 to 5,000 a month, monthly. And even I have a mover who spends 15,000 a month. Monthly's good for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I would say, we'll get into this, why our reports are so good, but I think that's a testament to our reports. If someone can look at something monthly and feel confident, I think it's a good sign. The only caveat I'll put on that, Chris, is you and I look at reporting basically every day. So if you're the manager, if you have a huge high spend account, if it's a huge part of your business and you're like the business owner, maybe it makes sense to get it more than one time a month. But if you're the standard 1 to 5,000 a month campaign, Chris, I think monthly, if you have a good report, is a good place to start. And for most people, it works out. So, Chris, that gets us into our basics. And if you want to know what basics we put on our AdWords reports that you and I each came up with separately, just go back and listen to the data columns episode, because basically we take that data and we put it on a report. And Chris, you can go through these clicks, impressions, click-through rate. Why don't you take us down the line?
Yeah. I mean, so this shouldn't be a surprise to really anyone. I mean, these are basic things that if you don't see these on your report, then you're being spun metrics that are probably only favorable to the manager or the agency that wants you to see these metrics. If they focus on clicks only and they don't show you some of these other ones, then be wary. So here, I'll run down the list. Clicks, impressions, click-through rate, cost per click, total cost, position, that's the average position,
right?
Conversion, cost per conversion, conversion rate, and then search impression share. And if you want to break it down a little further, if you want to know details on search impression share, it might be valuable to also see search impression share loss due to rank and budget. So those should be standard on any report. I think those are important to analyze the success. And if you have questions about your campaign, you might wonder why your position is always in first or always in fourth. And your manager or agency should be able to answer those questions for you.
And Chris, I also like seeing all those standard pieces of data because they all play a role together. So your clicks could be low because your average position is too low. If your average position is too low, your click-through rate could be too low. But then again, that could make you have a nice cost per click. So it all plays a role together. And I think seeing all the data there, and honestly for me, Chris, sometimes seeing it in report format outside of the AdWords account helps me as well, kind of tie it all together. So that's the standard stuff you and I both have kind of at the always on our reports. But Chris, they don't always tell the full story. So one of the things you can do, and you should do if you have lots of different types of conversions, is break those conversions down on that report, Chris. Because some of my campaigns, Chris, have a metric of viewed more than 3 pages from Google Analytics as a goal, being imported into AdWords as a conversion. And that is a wildly different type of conversion than a phone call that lasts 4 minutes. So if you don't have the standard leads and calls conversion breakdown, we like to see the breakdown of the conversions to kind of let the report reader know, okay, I did get this top line conversion number, but how many of them were the most valuable things, phone calls, how many of them were lead forms, and then how many of them were kind of secondary conversions, viewed multiple pages, viewed a contact page, that kind of thing. So Chris, you have down here the ads. What do you like to see on your reports in terms of the ads? Do you actually put the full ads on there so business owners can see it like users see it in Google?
Yeah, I like to show my clients, what their searchers are seeing on Google. I want to show them because it's kind of a sanity check. I always point them out and say, "They're your ads," and I kind of pause and let them look at them. And if I hear anything like, "Oh, we don't," that's not the right word, or something that jumps out at them that doesn't look appropriate, I want to know that. So it's more of a sanity check on them being able to see it and not them not being surprised by the language that they're using, that I'm using in the ads. So it's it's all very organic in the way that this report looks. I think the connection we're drawing these for the basics is this. If you have clicks and you have different metrics for click-through rate and cost per click and average position, all of this here forms an overall impression or a decision. You cannot look at individual metrics. You cannot look at here's what your ROI is and get a general idea of how the campaign's going. You cannot just see conversion volume. You cannot see how much your click-through rate is and say it's a healthy campaign. It is absolutely not that simple. What we want to make a connection here is that there are endless ties between all of these different things. They're all interconnected. And in the end, you need to make an impression about the campaign as a whole using all of these metrics. That's why Jason and I are pushing the fact that you want to be connected with each of these metrics, because it's not just a simple number. It's not a checkbox. Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. And Chris, on those ads, I also like to put the actual full ad so people can see exactly what their search users see. And then on those ads, Chris, we also have the different columns of data. How many clicks did this ad get? How many conversions? What's the conversion rate of this ad versus another ad? So I like to throw all that in there as well. Now, moving on to what you and I both think is the most important, oftentimes part of the report: keywords, search queries, campaign breakdowns, and network breakdowns. These kind of break down those top numbers and tell us really what's going on. So why did you feel the need to put keywords and search queries and these campaign and network breakdowns in the important section? Like, why do you think of these things as important as to just oppose like the basics, like clicks, impressions?
Yeah. So, here's the thing about a campaign. A campaign can I can generate phenomenal numbers for a campaign in just about any client. Okay. I can get great click-through rates. I can get amazing conversions, and, get low cost per click. But Jason, the fact is, if I were to tell you that and then show you what keywords I'm doing that with, you might be surprised to see that, oh, this is, you're advertising on my brand name. Or I saw another client once before. I looked at their report and I was like, man, these guys are killing it. They have amazing metrics. And then when I looked at, they were half of their conversions, no, 75% of their conversions were people that were clicking because they were looking for a dating site help number. They were calling the phone number in the ad, converting for that client, getting great, like 30% conversion rates. Right. Killing it, to gain great stuff. But the fact is, once you looked at the search queries, okay, and then as an educated AdWords manager, I looked at those keywords and I was like, those keywords look kind of broad, they look kind of fishy. Yeah. I looked at those search queries and I realized those are people that are Googling a help toll-free number for a dating service online and then calling. It's tracking as a conversion. The click-through rate's great, but this is all worthless.
Now, what is what kind of business was the client in?
It was a B2B. It was a B2B business that was
not a dating site.
No, yeah, you're right. I should clarify that. It was not a dating site. It was a highly technical B2B service that was very expensive to show ads for. And, and very difficult to get leads for. Honestly, we're talking about a very small percentage of America would be even searching for something like this. So that's the reason this is important. It is more than a sanity check of checking the copy on your ads. It's a sanity check of what am I getting in the campaign? What am I paying for? What are these clicks for?
Right. Is it actually bringing in business? So same thing, Chris. Like I had a client who had worked with one of the bigger agencies out there, just one of the scammier ones, honestly. And he showed me his report because he was like, look, I think I want someone who has better communication, but I think things are going good. And he showed me the report, and it had all the basics that we were just talking about: clicks, conversions, costs, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't have search queries, or even it did have keywords, but it didn't have search queries. And I was like, bro, we can't even really know what's going on without search queries. Because anyone who listens to this show knows that search queries can be a lot different from keywords, like the example you just gave. So you like to give the keywords, I do as well. But then beyond that, you like to give search queries and search terms, as they're called also. And I like to give those as well. And anytime a client has like questions about the report and doesn't feel maybe that things are going well, I always point them to that search terms, Chris. In my report, I say it's the most important section of the report. Like, this is what's going on. This is where your money's going. These are the things people are actually typing in Google. So I love that as an important section, search queries. And then finally, Chris, campaign breakdowns and also network breakdowns. So let's talk about network breakdowns first. Search network versus display network versus YouTube, but we'll keep YouTube separate. So because most people run search and display. Search, display, Chris, if you have those two together, that can wildly influence the click-through rate, the cost per click, and the overall idea of how things are going. So do you like to break those out as well if there's a major display factor going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want my top line on my report to say a click-through rate of 0.5 because my display campaign has a horrible click-through rate, which is fine. That's normal display stuff. But I don't want it to kill my really good 3.6% click-through rate for my search. I want them to be able to see that.
Especially when 90% of their budget is going to search and only 10% is going to display. So you're doing a great job on search, but because display is so high volume, even though it's not high spend usually, it can really, really negatively influence those overall numbers. So yeah, Chris, I like to break that down. And then campaign breakdowns. A lot of times I have different locations for different clients, and they like to focus on which locations are doing better, how much money's going to each location. So it's nice to have a nice campaign breakdown and see how much spend is going into different campaigns, and also clicks and impressions, conversions, and that kind of thing.
And I want to point out something about campaign breakdowns. This is a pretty big insight into how your manager or agency works. If you notice everything's in one campaign and you're spending a significant amount of money, you don't have a really small campaign, you might be wondering why everything's in one campaign. If it's in one campaign, the next thing to check might be maybe you have one ad group. Maybe there's only two ad groups. There might be some concerns there because this is a pretty, if they're going to give that information, maybe take a second to look, how many ad groups are there? Is there one ad group, or are there 4, 5, 6 ad groups? Maybe for a small spend campaign, you don't need that many, but probably more than one ad group is warranted. So definitely something to consider there. It's a pretty, you may, for people who do not have access to their AdWords campaign, it's really the only insight you're going to get into what the campaign really looks like.
Yeah, it's nice to know how many ad groups you have. Now, Chris, I traditionally don't report ad groups on my reports because I have SCAGs, as I found out they were called, or whatever you say, single keyword ad groups. Did not know that was a term or even a thing. But Chris, I got to tell you, it does not attract the most nice people. For whatever reason, that's a very, very weird subgroup of PPC people that call it SCAG.
It's those people that want to
game the system,
sit and have a beer and talk about the most monotonous, boring, just stuff about AdWords, about why they can get 2 cents off of their top keyword cut off, and you're just like, this is, I mean,
Dare I say, Chris, that the people, I mean, I do scag, but I don't call it that. So the people who call it scag, dare I say, they're also the people with the long tail fetish on pay-per-click.
yeah,
Seem to be the same type of people. Yeah. So
I can see that.
That's why I don't have ad groups, and my clients know that for most of their campaigns, it's one keyword per ad group or few keywords. So, but if you don't know that about your campaign, for sure, ask to see ad groups on your report. So, Chris, that gets us into the non-necessary things in life, but that you enjoy on your report. So you tell me you like to see analytics data, and I like to see location data. So why don't you break down Google Analytics data? And why don't you really take us back to 1997 and tell us what Google Analytics is? Because a lot of people come to me, business owners, and they don't have Google Analytics on their site.
Right. I mean, at this point, Google Analytics, I mean, it's funny. I don't even ask if they have, what analytics are you using on your site? I just ask, invite me to your Google Analytics, because it's become universal. I mean, it's ridiculous. You remember when you used to have to buy GPS, and you don't just assume that people have Google Maps, but now you just have Google Maps on your phone. I remember my dad buying like a $400 GPS unit for his car, and now it's like, those don't even, I don't think they even make them. They probably do for like some purpose.
Hardcore in the desert stuff, but
so basically analytics has overcome any type of other metric measurement that I've come across in my experience. But basically analytics is just a check of how your users interact with your website. Okay. So this, the keywords and the ads, that's before they come to the website, right? That's your pre-relevance check, your click-through rate, stuff like that. If you're relevant, you're going to see good stuff, and they're clicking through. Once they click, what do they do? Analytics gives that information. That's what analytics is about. We're talking about bounce rate, time on site, pages per session, and percentage of new visitors. Those are the things that I like to see. I don't pay a huge amount of attention to them, but it is nice to see, hey, you got a 48% bounce rate, looking good. Oh, you have a 95% bounce rate. Holy cow.
Or, sometimes things, Chris, you can catch things with analytics data like, oh, you have a 1% bounce rate. Like maybe there's 2 analytics codes on the site and something's going on. It's not set up correctly. So now, Chris, just to clarify for everyone, the analytics data that you have on some of these AdWords reports, it's only for the AdWords traffic.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And not analytics data overall. Makes sense. So one thing I like to do, it's not necessary, Chris, but I like to see it. And if I was a business owner, I'd like to see it. I like a location breakdown. What cities were my users in when they clicked on the ads? This holds your AdWords manager, whoever it is, accountable, because you make sure that they have the settings set up correctly and you're getting traffic from the right areas. And then as a business owner, it's nice to know what parts of the metro or state or whatever your customers are coming from, and maybe that can influence some of your offline activities in terms of where you set up offices, where you do offline advertising, and where you try to go sell people. So I like to see locations, Chris. Usually that's at the end of my report, so it is definitely nice to see, but it's not critical. So now, Chris, as we close the 51st chapter of this beautiful book we call the Paid Search Podcast.
Wait, 50. We're
51st.
We are on. Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
51st. What to watch for and questions to ask.
Yeah.
Or AdWords Manager. So basically, bros, don't get scammed. Like this section of our pod here, Chris, is going to help people kind of know if they're looking at a bogus report.
Yeah. I mean, all the stuff we talked about. Yeah. I mean, all the stuff we talked about is like, well, I don't get that. I don't get that. Basically, what we're going to talk about now is these are the ways that this is what you might be seeing. If you're not seeing this stuff, this is probably what you are seeing, and this is what it's accomplishing for your agency. Now, I want to say this: just because an agency provides only this information does not mean that they're scamming or that they're bad or something like that. It may just be that's the system they use, and that's that's just what they do. But as our advice, Jason and I agree, it is better to know what you're getting than to just wonder and be in ignorance about this information and not have any information about it. To wonder how much brand am I, how many conversions are brand, how many of these keywords are junk keywords that are people trying to call a dating site online.
Right. So Chris, one of the first things we would ask if we were a business owner looking at a report is, okay, you told me we're advertising on my brand keywords, but why is brand not broken out? So if you look at your report and you're advertising on brand, but your campaigns or ad groups or keyword data, if it's all mixed in there with brand, you might have a serious issue, because brand is a monkey. Could run a brand campaign on Google AdWords. You just throw in the brand keywords, you get click-through rates of sometimes 60, 80%, and you get a super cheap cost per click compared to your other keywords. And that high click-through rate, low cost per click, and high conversion rates, those skew your overall metrics. So you could be doing a great brand campaign for 10% of your traffic, a horrible search campaign for 90% of your traffic in terms of cost, and try to make it look good. And it could look good if you don't know what to look for. So if you're running a brand campaign, make sure that data is broken out on your report.
Yeah. And another telltale sign is what you want to look for are extremely high metrics. If you see really high click-through rates, really high conversion rates, and I'll throw some numbers out. If you see something like in the 13, 15, 20% click-through rate range, there's a red light warning for you. You see conversion rates that are, just really, I don't know. I mean, conversion rates are tough to say, but I would say
depends on the conversion. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe 50%, that's really high.
Now,
30%.
is you're thinking that's an alarm bell because there could be brand mixed in there?
Yeah, I'm thinking that there's something happening, that they're doing something. And I worked for an agency before that did this. What they did is they took Google and they ran, maybe 80% on Google, and then they took these other smaller search engines and that could get clicks for like 5 cents, 20 cents, something like that, and threw that in there as well. And it made their cost per click look really low because they put both metrics in together in their reports.
Wow.
So it would take, AdWords might be $5 a click, but then when they throw in, an extra 200 clicks at 20 cents a click from search traffic, which it was absolute junk, they looked like they were doing phenomenal. It made their cost per click, go down, and made their made their conversion, their cost per conversion, look really good because they'd ever get a bunch of clicks and these. It was amazing what they do. So look for those extremely high metrics because they could be a sign of something going on there.
Yep. Another sign that's not good is not being allowed to see search terms. Now, not every AdWords manager is going to provide search terms data on the report, and that's fine. Most people don't do it. Chris, you and I are the only ones I've ever met that do it standard. So not everyone's going to do that. But if you ask to see them and you're denied, or you said, "Oh, we can't get that," or "No, it doesn't work like that," that's a lie. It does work like that. If you want to report search terms, you can. So even if you don't have access to your own account, so not willing to show you your search terms, that is to me a really, really bad sign, Chris.
And the answers that I hear a lot when people ask about that is, no, you're not gonna see a list of your search terms because it somehow it's private data about our secret sauce or something like that. They act like it's something no, this is part of our campaign strategy. We can't just share it with anyone because you can go out and do it yourself. You can get a just basic dump of all the search queries without any assignment to the ad group. Just a list of the search queries and then just filter through that. You can ask for that and there's no risk in that. I mean, that's just honest AdWords management. Just, I want to see what I'm paying for.
Yeah.
So the next one here, I'll take the next one. The next one is, I would say if a conversion is not strongly defined, if someone is not, explaining exactly what a conversion is, that's something to be very wary about. Let me explain an example that I've seen in the past. There's this new thing in analytics called the think it's a smart conversion or a
smart goal.
Smart goal. Thank you. Smart goal. And I think we've talked about it before. Smart goal is absolute BS in
No,
importing it. No,
stop, Chris, stop.
I'm telling you, man.
Stop.
It says, oh, this person was on the page for 90 seconds and had, and did not bounce, and they were a new visitor. Conversion. No, that is not a valid conversion. If you do not define these, you're possibly getting information that is skewed based on these false impressions of what a real conversion is about. So,
all right. So I'm not going to be as harsh on the smart goals.
That's because you use them, don't you? Is that what it is?
No, I don't use them. I just don't want to be taken out, bro.
Okay.
I don't want to be walking to get my morning paper. Motorcycle drives by. Snipe, snipe.
Oh my God.
Jason's gone. I'm scared of the beast, Chris.
Bring it.
I'm scared of the big guy. So no, I mean, someone took the time to create smart goals, Chris. Someone took the time to promote it. And I'm not just going to put it under my butt and take a crap on it like you do. I'm going to respect it. And now, do I use smart goals? No. Do I ever pay attention to them? No. But in a case where you can't get hard conversions data, I see it. I see the logic there. So the way I would put it, Chris, is if you ask your person reporting to you, what is a conversion? And you get something like, it's interested traffic, or it's a qualified shopper, or a smart goal. If you have the option of getting harder conversions, then I'd be a little weary. Like, well, you're able to measure things like phone calls, lead form signups, e-commerce sales. So why are you only telling me about an interested shopper or a qualified traffic? Like, don't mix it up for me. Tell me, was it a phone call? Was it a lead form? If it is a phone call, how long did it have to last to qualify as a conversion? And then was it an e-commerce sale? You can measure all of these things 99 times out of 100, depending on the client's website. So conversion should be defined. That's our last tip. But the final one, Chris, actually is I love this one. Everything should be easy to understand about the report in general. A 10-year-old should be able to get that report, have it explained to them, like, these are what clicks are, these are what conversions are, this is what a conversion is, these are your search terms. 5 minutes with a 10-year-old, you can explain to them what it is. So does it pass the sniff test? Does it pass the 10-year-old test? Could a 10-year-old understand my report? And if they can, then you've got a good report. If they can't, then something is either going on that's a little shady, or you just don't have a good manager reporting to you. So I like to use that kind of could a kid understand it threshold, Chris.
Yeah. And I've talked to clients before in the past, and they said, Chris, our last manager that we worked with, which is why we went and looking for someone else, is because they could not explain a report to save their lives. They said we'd spend an hour on the phone with them and walk away and have absolutely no idea what they were talking about.
Right. And who's got time for that? Yeah. And that's one of the reasons people love the Paid Search Podcast, Chris, is because they say we give it in a funny way, but we actually straight talk. We explain Google AdWords and paid search. So, Chris, been thinking about it. I do not love that we get in here, we go deep inside of Google AdWords, and then we hit a little time, a made-up time threshold that you see, and you go, whoa, bro, cut the pod. And so we have to have a hard out, a hard exit. It's a little jarring for me. So can't we just start easing out of these podcasts with like a little banter, a little funny? I mean, is that okay with you? Like a little story time?
We can try, and we can get feedback. Say, guys, that was good, or tell us, guys, I gotta, I'm trying to get to work here, but I don't want to shut off the podcast.
By the way, you say that your idea of our listener is someone getting their Toyota Camry, driving to work, listening to an exactly 30-minute podcast because they've timed their commute and they can't go over 30 minutes. Yet every single person that contacts us, Chris, goes, man, I was just driving across country and I listened to every episode.
That's true.
Who are these people, Chris? How much meth are they dealing? Like, who just drives across the country? I've never driven across the country.
That's funny.
That's what all our listeners do.
Because the guy who emailed us and said that he's going to listen to this and he's going to be like, you just called me a meth dealer.
Well, Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, Chris, to take us out, a little softer exit here, I've got a funny story for you, and I'm about to just lay you down and just roll this school bus over you.
Okay.
So we can, we can edit this out, but I hope you don't, because it's a funny story. Now, you sit up here on this perch. I've said it before. I had you on the mountain, and that you were the man, Chris, and you still are the man. So you probably are not so easily offended that this is going to get to you. But the other day, I submitted a job on a major freelancing website. You know what I'm talking about. And I had an interview with this person, and it was an agency. And she goes, "Well, thanks, Jason. I've talked to, I've got 3 other people lined up, and I've really liked what you've said you can do for me, but I'm going to talk to these other people." And I go, "Oh, was Chris Schaeffer one of your other people? Because I know you and I always bid on the same jobs, right? Because we're in the same business. And you've actually taken a job from me before, where I had a good interview with someone, and then it turns out you dropped it on the pod that was your client. I didn't even know it."
Yeah.
So she goes, "No, not Chris." And I go, "Oh, well, I do the podcast with them. Most times when I talk to people from the site, they're always interviewing. Both of us are in their final list because, we're the top best in the business." And she goes, "No, Chris didn't make my final cut." And I was shocked. I was like,
"What?"
I was like, "What?" I mean, if you look at your profile and your bona fides, like, dude, you're the man. Like, how can someone not make your final cut without even talking to you? But whatever you're doing on there is working for 99% of the people. This one lady who runs an agency, she was not having your nonsense, Chris. So,
did you get the job?
No. I mean, we talked for 35 minutes. It was a complete waste of time.
Oh.
You know how those things go.
Did she talk to me?
No, she didn't talk to you. She just
never
said,
did talk to me. Okay.
It sounded like you had bid on the job, but you didn't make the final cut. Was her?
Man, because she knew who I was. She said, "Oh, not Chris."
Yeah, like I said, was because she goes, "I've got 3 more interviews," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, so I said, "Oh, is Chris one of them?" Because we do the podcast together. And I was trying to convey to her, like, "Oh, me and Chris, we're the top. It's got to be one of us."
Yeah.
So I was trying to get us in good graces, and she goes, "Oh, not Chris." I go, "What?" And she goes, "I can't even make my final cut." So, Chris, you're up there. You think your application to interview rate is 100% on there. It's not, bro. You're down here with the rest of us. So I had to bring a little humility. I hope you're not mad at me.
No,
because you're doing just fine. You're doing just fine.
I'm
but
doing
I
fine.
thought that was a hilarious story because it shows how fine you're doing. I was like, well, then what's your problem? Because like, there's nothing wrong with Chris or his profile. Like, there's no I mean, come on. Like, what could be wrong?
I remember submitting a couple jobs recently, and I've been kind of busy, and I put a little more.
You got a little sassy.
I got a little snarky on some of my responses. They were like, I would need help doing, getting a really good conversion rates on my display campaign, and I responded like, "Hey, I'll interview with you." And I was like, "But I gotta, I'll give you some free advice. Stop your stupid display campaign." And then I never hear back from those because they're like, what a jerk. So.
Well, that might have been. Oh God. Okay, everyone. The cars have just driven into buildings. People are getting fired, Chris. They don't know what to do. They're 10 minutes late on their commute. So we'll wrap it up here. But hey, I like the water cooler episodes, Chris. We got to do another one soon. And let's mix it in at the end, see what people think of that. So I'm done. Chris, you can take us out. I love when you take us out. So, and you also have the controls there. So
I try and keep it fresh. So, all right, guys, thanks for listening. We do the FB and the TW, so hit us up there, and
and the GR
and the Goodreads. I don't know what GR is.
Grinder.
Oh gosh.
Joke.
Yeah, you just had to help, didn't you? Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah, so anyway, I feel like we've gotten really casual. See, this is why you keep it straight, because it falls apart if you don't keep it.
Yeah, you gotta bring them out strong. So everybody, hit us up on our social media pages. Thank you so much for the reviews. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing the show. We really appreciate it. Please support our first sponsor ever, Brand Verity. We appreciate them sponsoring these episodes, and also send us your facts and we will answer the questions here on the podcast. So thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next Monday with episode 52. 2 of the Paid Search Podcast.